And like, obviously, you're watching it on a channel that says comedian and it says Ricky Glore and whatever, so it's not real. But I do like the people that think that Jet Mansplain and or anybody is a real person.
Yeah, I hate Chet Mansplain. Not the character.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I do hate the character. I don't hate that you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Which one out of all my wigged? Because you know this all came out of me, except for Chet Mansplain. The everybody else came out of me finding a box of wigs that I had stolen from my college theater department.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, what does this wig look like?
All right.
Oh, I can make a character that's this.
Here we go,
And I
Daddio.
don't have to be clean. Yes, I'm ready. Wait,
Daddy,
are we live on the YouTube?
wunderbar,
Fuck yeah.
bitteschön, danke, 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 Papa, danke, Daddio. Oh, I'm going out for a smoke, Daddio. Oh no, nah, ain't coming back. Nein, danke, Papa. Nein, danke, Daddy. Oh no.
Now is the time on Daddio when we dance. Welcome to Daddio. I'm Glenn Tickle.
And I'm Ricky Glore. You almost laughed.
I did. I mean,
That's
I think
sad.
that's the
I'm
one.
sorry.
I think that's the one that has the closest potential to be like a real single that people bop along to.
But did you catch? I don't know how good your German is. Did you catch what the story was?
I heard "Thank you, Papa."
Thank you. So thank you, Daddy. Thank you. Welcome. Blah blah blah. A lot of different words for appreciation in German. But then Daddio is going out for some smokes, and he's not coming back.
Oh no! Why are the
Yeah,
Daddios
that was.
bad Daddios in these?
'Cause I think anybody that calls themselves a Daddio probably isn't a good dad.
But us, we
We,
are.
yeah, but we do it like satirically.
I love it.
Again, it just goes back to like what we mock about ourselves or mock about anybody else. I feel like sometimes an audience uh hasn't. I think the level of some of our outside humor that isn't the curated stand up, I think sometimes an audience doesn't fully understand because it's not presented to them and they don't have a knowledge
Do you mean like
of
how I love D's nuts jokes more than almost any other type of humor? Is that like an example of what
yes,
you're talking about? Where like I'm not going to go up on stage and tell a bunch of D's nuts jokes, but if
right,
I hear one, I love it.
yes. But if you did, if like someone saw you doing that, they would be like, if somebody knew Glenn Tickle as a comedian and then got to experience your inner circle of D's nuts, I think they would have a hard time distinguishing Glenn Tickle the comedian and the humor that comes from that and your like they'd be like, well, you're only one funny one way. It's D's nuts. You can only like or you're not,
Right.
your
That's
stand up
consistently
persona.
how you get me, how people will get me to laugh. I was
Oh,
talking about my autoimmune disease and like some of the problems that go
god
along with
damn
it.
it. You're always talking about your
I know,
autoimmune
but I was
disease.
talking about it and some of the other problems that are associated with it. And my friend, comedian Aaliyah Brown, said comorbidities nuts, and it's the hardest I've laughed at anything in probably 2 years.
Oh, that makes everyone else feel so bad. Like I
Right.
feel like you have like a list, like a bevy of people who are just like, what? How can I make Glenn laugh? This is how I'm gonna do it. He's so sophisticated. I'm gonna make this like.
I'm gonna make a great chess en passant joke. Look, I'll take it.
Did you
Right?
did you see the chess
Yes,
story that I shared you?
you are now the sixth. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you did. So a lot of people, and I'm not complaining. It's going to sound like I am, because I guess I am. So many people since the Magnus Carlsen jeans thing happened have been like, oh, Glenn, I got to tell you, this thing just happened. Yeah, I know. Guys, I know.
You had the alert turned on
No, I
for
was
all
watching the
things jazz.
tournament. I know.
Oh yeah.
If it's like, there's a lot of Batman memes about fatherhood that I'm sure you have seen that I got sent so many times by so many people, and it's like, guys, I've seen the Batman joke. Like, it's like Batman's one of my favorite things in the world. I'm aware of the Batman jokes that you, a layperson, might come across. Where like the chess things, it's like, guys, yeah. I spend a lot of my time focusing on competitive chess. If a thing happens that is like that has broad enough appeal that ESPN is going to run a headline about it, I know about the chess thing.
That's such I'm not putting you down.
Do it.
That is the same vein of like the snobby record shop owner who's just like, hey, have you heard about this thing that's like super popular or breaking through? And you're like, yeah,
I know.
I know about it.
A couple people were asking me about it because they wanted like more context, and I was excited about. They're like,
so that is why I sent it to you.
But like, my wife presented it as, oh, I have some chess news that you might want to hear about. Lady, sit down. What do you think I've been doing in the den all day?
Chest? You're like, chest news?
Yeah.
Like boobs? Like,
if you want to drop some chest news on me, lady, dump them out. Oh, I regret saying dump them out. I mean, not enough that I'm not gonna retract it. I'm not gonna edit it. That stays in the episode.
Okay. Talking about personas. So you got your offstage, low-hanging fruit, no pun intended, D's nuts.
Sure.
Or Bofa jokes, which another fellow comedian, Billy DeVore, also
they're great.
Loves so much. Will text me them. And it's like when you're reading it, you know it's coming. Yeah. Like,
I think I might have said it on another episode, but my one friend who I was staying with on a tour recently, he was like, I don't know. It's not really a question. It's just, he's like, you're a comedian and a good one and a smart comedian, but the hardest you laugh is at the dumbest D's nuts jokes. It's like, yeah, man, I don't know what to tell you. It's just how it is.
Because it goes with, again, something we mentioned on another episode where I said, I don't necessarily gravitate towards comedy that anybody else could perceive being similar or a comedian being similar. That's not where I go to.
I think I misunderstood you saying that one time in a way that I think about it constantly, but then having heard you say it again, I don't think you mean what I thought you meant.
What did you think I meant?
One time we were doing a show together in, I think, a winery in Pennsylvania, and you were staying in like a weird farmhouse that would have been haunted if ghosts were real, but they're not. And you said something to the effect of, I don't do the kind of comedy I enjoy watching. And I think that was me misunderstanding what you were talking about now. Because it was like, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do comedy that you like?
You thought I was being fraudulent.
I thought you're like, oh, I don't know. I'm just doing what the people
internal
want.
Struggle.
Yeah.
I was placating.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you know what you want me to be? This is what it is.
But then I've heard you say similar things since, and I was like, oh, I don't think that's what he meant.
No, that's not what I meant. I can recognize that I can really enjoy a political comedian or someone who is so different than me of something that I don't think I could possibly touch or do. That's typically what I like more. Kind of like someone who can play baseball. I can respect the person who plays it at a professional level or a different level, a different skill set. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'd rather watch that. I don't want to watch somebody that's doing it on a similar level or similar timbre that I'm doing it. But in the same vein, um, finding your comedic voice, right? You're not going to go up on stage and talk about Bofa jokes. You're not going to talk about D's nuts jokes, even though they genuinely make you laugh.
It feels too much like doing street jokes on stage. Is why
Right.
I wouldn't. If I think of like a
If you
super
thought of a
clever
Glenn
one in
Tickle
the moment,
D's
I
nuts,
might drop
yes.
it. But I'm not going to sit down and be like, all right, I have to craft the greatest Bofa in all of like it doesn't.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it could ever be found, but I would love to find a way to. It's why I used to play the ukulele on stage and will from time to time, is because I do really like that, like traveling gypsy vaudevillian
Stop saying that.
kind of like
It's a slur.
entertainer like thing. Like I would just love to do whatever I think entertains me and the audience.
Yeah.
The audience first, because if the audience
Oh, the audience is like fifth for me.
really for
Yeah.
you, or where is the audience for you? Because obviously you're curating a narrative and material
Yeah.
to entertain them in the best way possible. It may still fulfill what you want to do, but you're only working at it so hard because you want it to be entertaining for them, right?
Audience in the room, I would put maybe third, without throwing in joke answers to bump them further down on the list. I would say it is me first, eventual audience that will be listening or watching whatever special this material ends up on, audience in the room.
I don't know. I mean, that
And
can
that
be
might
what
be
your answer is.
That might
but
be the wrong order, but that's
no.
that's
I
what
just
it is.
I've observed you to bring up Florida trip. If that were true, like I think you can. Again, completely my opinion. I think you can have audience and yourself be even.
Oh, never.
Is
I might
Boca.
put the other two audiences even with each other, but they're never they're never going to be on my level.
But I've seen you though want to do a good show for whatever reason for the people that are there. Say like Boca Black Box. And you know that you're going to have more fun if you sell it, if you put yourself into it. But I think you also don't want to disappoint, and you still want to put on a good show and make the people who are there laugh. So I think if
I
both,
do. It's just I want to have a good time first. And me just like dryly going through the motions of doing my act, that's not fun for me.
right, and that's what you and I have talked about, where I know that I have gone on autopilot sometimes.
Oh yeah. I've
To
done it.
fill-
I've done it
fill
on a
time.
number of corporate gigs this month where it's just like, all right, I got to talk for 45 minutes to get this check. Let's just get it done.
That's because of other circumstances that are with that. Like if it's either a Zoom call or it's corporate, and like you work hard for maybe the first, like, I don't know what the time that you start tapping out and
Yeah.
start just going autopilot is. If it's 3 minutes, if it's 2 minutes, if 5
It depends.
minutes,
If I'm doing
whatever,
it in corporate, I do I play the hits, like I do stuff off albums that I know usually works. Doesn't matter
Then if
how
it
old
doesn't-
it is. But then yeah, like if the jokes about my name and substitute teaching get nothing, I'm like, all right, guys, this is gonna be a long 45.
okay, so you do categorize your material. Where you're like, this is the most low-hanging Glenn Tickle material.
There's like some obvious jokes about my name that I did a lot more when I was starting out because I mean, I do still feel like I have to do jokes about my name because it's so dumb. Like people think it's made up. It's not. And I have to justify it because if it was made up, then I shouldn't. If there's someone who gave themselves the stage name Johnny Tickle, that person shouldn't be allowed to do comedy
Yes.
because that's such a dumb name that they've given themselves, It's why I
Yeah.
get so weird about people who use stage names. because it makes it harder for me to exist in the world as just a guy with a dumb name.
Yeah.
So like, Carrot Top, just you're Scott, man. Just be Scott. Like just tell
Oh,
people your name is Scott.
what's his real
Scott
name?
Thompson. Same as the Kids in the
Oh,
Hall
okay.
guy.
Oh no.
I
I don't like that.
think it is. I'm pretty
Stay
sure
Carrot.
that's his real name.
Stay Carrot Top.
But I mean, it's a different time, admittedly. You know, he was starting up in the '80s. He's a guy with red hair doing props, trying to stand out. Okay, but it's 2024 for a few more hours. You're Scott. Just tell people your name is Scott. Do you make people call you Carrot backstage? What are you doing?
Oh yeah. Like,
have you ever
Carrot.
seen Carrot Top Scott Thompson live?
No.
He is one that people keep telling me. They're like, we went in Vegas. We didn't think it was going to be a good time, but it was incredible. And I was like, I'm okay.
Sure.
I got nothing
He's,
against the
from
dude
what
other
I
than the stage
gather-
name. People dump on prop comedy. I was like, no, I'm genuinely impressed by prop comedy sometimes. But
I can have my
stage name
misgivings
thing.
and my knee-jerk reaction to any form of comedy. One of my biggest annoyances is anybody who tries to put comedy, such a broad term, in a box of any sort.
right.
That goes back to the vaudevillian thing. So if anybody goes up on stage with a guitar, I will have the knee-jerk reaction that is pretty similar to a lot of different comedians of just being like, well, this is probably going to be hard and arduous.
You're
to
like, oh, why is that
get
ukulele so big? Is that your reaction?
A ukulele should be smaller. Fucking dumbass joke gets a laugh every time.
It's so dumb.
This
It's
isn't
got
a ukulele. I'm just
yeah.
a really big guy.
It's landed every time I've seen you do it. It is a very dumb joke.
Yeah. It's a dumb joke. I think that is one of my closest. So I used to have two different. I actually opened my dry bar on the other Steve Martin-esque joke,
Mm-hmm.
which is by a round of applause, how many people have clapped their hands before?
Yeah. And then you have everybody
mean-
introduce themselves by name at the same time.
Yeah, everybody tell me your name and I say thank you for being here. Yeah. Oh my God, how many times have you watched my dry bar?
I crank off to it constantly.
It's a fat Ricky. Like, oh, fat Ricky. Ah. That's when he was hot. I wish he didn't lose the weight and his hair.
Yeah, I've had a hard time bringing it up, but you gotta get that
my
thick
wife-
jumper back.
My wife has talked about, she's just like, man, she's like, you used to have such a good head of hair. I was like, thank you. Thank you for having this in memoriam.
R.I.P.
I will remember you for my hair. Children happened and
Yeah.
life happened.
I have a hat on because I woke up a few minutes before we started recording this, and it looks ghastly. But yeah, I don't know. I'm 41.
I did it.
It's thinning
I
out a
did
little
it.
bit.
Hey, in 2025, which happens, as you mentioned, we're recording on New Year's Eve, 12/31/2024 at 9:32 a.m. When that hits the 12:01, I will be in the year of my 40s. So
I keep forget. I always think
40 yet.
Yeah, I always think we're closer
think
in
I'm
age
older
than
than
we
you?
are. No, I just think, oh yeah, we're both the same. It's
We're the same.
roughly.
We're the same person.
I mean, it's not a big age gap, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm 41.
It's going to be a beautiful mind situation.
Well,
where it's going to be revealed that we are the same person and we're both living in two different locations.
my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather, had more or less a full head of hair till he died.
Yeah.
My other grandfather, bald as long as I can remember him. My dad, mostly bald. My brothers, mostly bald. So I'm hanging in there better than them. So I at this point, I got to assume I'm getting the Charles Gensheimer look later in life, where it's like, yeah, I mean, it'll be thin, it'll be light, but it'll be there. So I've taken no steps to preserve what I got. I got shampoo. I got thickening biotin shampoo.
So you have.
But
you
I'm
have
not-
taken steps.
but I'm not.
No, it's an active step.
No, but that's. I mean, it's not like medicine. It is just. I don't know.
That is a step, though.
It's
You're
a
just
step,
like,
but that's
I
as far
care.
as it's.
Yeah.
I'm not getting hair transplants. I'm not putting goo on my head.
Hims or whatever.
no.
Like it gives you a bigger donger and it helps
Oh,
your
man.
hair or whatever.
I'm having a hard time with what I'm already working with, getting that bad boy around. You know.
For me, it's Yeah, I'm never gonna color it. I'm never gonna do
I might
anything
color it
to
for fun, like
for an acting job or
I'm more
something. I'll
likely to
probably more
make it
likely throw it
blue
a
than I
wig on.
am be like, oh, I gotta like get some Just for Men and make this jet black, like the dude in my neighborhood who walks around. He's clearly in his 80s, jet black hair and
Yeah.
mustache. You're like, man, just
Natural.
pack it in, my guy.
Natural. Clark Gable. For me, it's gonna be the idea that I'm not gonna do anything to make it look like I am younger or older or whatever. But we were just in Chicago, and a friend of my wife's, a friend of mine as well, he has a noticeable bald spot at his crown.
Yeah.
I have a similar crown. It's a three-way part. My son Gus has it. He is going to probably experience the same hair as I do. My maternal grandfather had a big ass forehead, but had a head of hair until he died at 95. So I think that's what I have. I'm going to have this, but I think it's getting to its natural place that it's going to be for the rest of my life. But he had a bald spot in the back.
You have Andy from
And
Twin Peaks hair.
yes, that is for all the Twin Peaks David Lynch fans. I recognize, though, that last time I got a haircut, I'm never not going to lie about what's going on up here in the thinning. But they left it long on top. And so this friend up in Chicago, he just had a haircut, and it was completely an open forest back there. And I said, "Oh," I was like, "You got a great haircut." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "First thing I told them was, I know I'm thinning back there, or I know I'm bald back there. Don't like cut it
Right.
down the
We're
same
not trying to
length as
hide it.
everything else." Yeah. And I said, "You know what?" I was like, "I just recognized that the other day when I was combing my hair. I was like, oh, this is long and stringy back here. I don't like that. So next time I go in, I have to say to them, hey, straight up, let's be real. There's a
I made a
deforestation."
joke about it. I talk about when my mom tried to give me a bunch of my baby teeth and hair for my first haircut. There's a line in that bit where I was like, I should have kept the baby hair. I don't know if I have to get like a witch to make it into a poultice or something, or just like tape it on. But it's more like I don't have like a spot. It is more just like in general less dense. So then the other joke is like I'm trying to make up for density with height because like I
Yes.
have my goal for hair is I want to look like a mad scientist in the middle of a breakthrough. And
For 2025,
yeah,
that is your New Year's Eve
that's
goal.
always what I go for. I just want it to look up and like I want to look slightly like a crazy person. And again,
That was me too.
not so much because I'm trying to hide,
Yeah.
I'm not
That's
being
how
like,
I
oh,
wore my hair.
that's how I hide the spot. It is just, I do think the only time it really looks like I'm noticeably thinning is when I'm under stage lights, which thankfully is my whole job. It is the time I am
Yes.
mostly being observed by others. And it's
Like, look at this.
yeah.
You have no makeup. You are white. You have thin hair.
Like Dry Bar, I don't know. They did like the spray to like darken my hair a little bit
Oh,
because she's like
okay.
the makeup lady said she's like, oh yeah, because like under lights it's gonna look thinner. And I was like, yeah, no, I've been under. I know what I'm working with back there.
She's like under lights.
Yeah,
She's not in your day to day. Like under lights.
yeah. But even
under
then,
these
when I
big
watch
ass
it,
professional lights.
I'm like, yeah, you can
You
tell.
look good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's I'm not.
No one's leaving that comment.
Why is this guy so
Like
bald?
guys can be dicks about subject material or like jokes and be like, oh hack, oh I've heard this,
Yeah.
oh this was a meme 20 years ago. But like nobody's commenting like, well, you don't look at your comments, right?
I
I do.
try not to, but I do. I look sometimes. The Dry Bar ones are mostly positive. I don't know if we've talked about it on here or just in real life. The one that drives me crazy is the joke about the recruiter reaching out to me about getting hired as a neurophysiologist because clearly the recruiter just made a mistake. But I like ran with it. I was like, yeah, I'll go in for an interview. Yeah, set it up. I filled out the job application because I wanted to see how far I could take it. Because I was like, oh, this is I will talk about this on stage. Like, yeah, this will be a fun thing. I
Yes.
get to tell people I did. The comment that drives me crazy is when people say that is just Jay Larson's bit about getting a wrong number, and he went along with it. And I was like, I mean, we both got phone calls. That's similar. We both,
That's where it ends.
as comedians, decided, oh, this might be a fun thing if I run with it. But like, to say that it is the same joke or imply that I stole it is infuriating. I get so upset.
What question, which is a good piggyback off of that, or maybe not good. I shouldn't set it up as being something that is positive. But I think because that is Jay Larson's is a Conan bit, which has been
Yeah, he did it
sent
on his
around
Conan
on-
set. It's a good bit. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I've never seen it. I don't know. I've seen that bit a lot of
It's on TikTok. It's on YouTube. It's on
I
Facebook
show it
Reels,
when I
it's on
teach stand
Instagram.
up. Like, this is a good
It's-
joke. You guys might like this.
Well, and like so, as we talked about Gary Goldman, the state abbreviations, like Goldman's state abbreviations bit is a great bit to show of being like, hey, don't stifle yourself as a
Yeah.
comedian. If you think something is ridiculous and nerdy and overblown or whatever, like, yeah, maybe that's not your 5 minute bit unless that's your whole 5 minutes, but like, embrace it, do it, find your voice of what you find is funny.
Yeah,
And like,
that's another one
full
that I
steam
show in
ahead.
class is that bit.
But so the Jay Larson one, because it was on Conan and because it is circulated so much, I think people now, obviously this coincides with people having opinions on the internet and
Which they
wanting
should
to
not.
share it.
Keep them to yourselves,
Is-
folks. I don't care.
They think they know more about comedy than they do. They think
Sure.
they're experts on this, that, or whatever because they've seen a clip or whatever, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, okay, normally I wouldn't have known that comedian. I wouldn't have known that clip. Most people don't even know that it's Jay Larson. They're just like, oh,
That
you're
guy.
doing a joke
Yeah.
that I heard. Yeah, that fat guy with a pink shirt.
Now, have you watched Nate Bargatze's new one?
No.
Your friend Nate Bargatze on Netflix?
I don't know Nick Bargatze.
No, that's the name of the special.
Oh,
Is
it's
your
your
friend
friend Nate
Nate
Bargatze.
Bargatze.
Yeah. No.
Which great title, Nate. I'm a big fan of Nate Bargatze. I did a corporate last week, and I was talking to some of the people before the show, and did you know Nate Bargatze did like a Christmas special? Not the stand-up special, like a holiday, like old-timey variety show Christmas thing. I had no idea. But
Like
this,
Sabrina Carpenter did?
I don't know. I guess. I don't know. Was
Oh,
she a part
sure.
of it? I don't know. But I didn't know. He did it, I guess, on CBS the night before this corporate gig.
Oh, on network television? Wow.
And the lady was like, I watched this terrible comedy thing last night. I don't remember the guy's name. Barry something. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I didn't watch whatever network.
Barry Crimmins.
And through talking to her more, I figured out she's talking about Nate Bargatze. I didn't know he did this special. I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. He's one of the funniest people. He's like one of the best stand-ups right now. I mean, I don't know what a Christmas variety show by him would look like, but he's really quite good. And she's like, I don't think he's very funny. I was like, well, then you're going to hate me.
So, not to make this episode about Nate Bargatze, but I do think that is an interesting topic because it's something that I'm not super versed on Nate or Mr. Bargatze, if you're nasty. Is obviously his stand-up does very well. A lot of specials, does a lot of big venues. He's synonymous with when you say stand-up comedians nowadays, he's one of them that is mentioned. But Jimmy Fallon in production company with Lauren Michaels semi-discovered him to put him on the trajectory that he is, and he has had like 6 failed television pilots.
Yeah.
So there is something about him, as we've talked about before, comedians in the 90s or Bill Burr, when they are like, oh, comedians back in the day, they used to be working towards a sitcom because of the Seinfeld model or whatever. That's how you get regular work. You get on the Tonight Show, then you get a sitcom, blah, blah, blah. It hasn't worked for him. So there is something about him that is not his stand-up persona that people are like, no thanks. And
I
that
don't know.
sounds like
I've
what you're saying.
the
Like,
only non stand up stuff that I've seen him do. Like I didn't even watch the whole episode. I watched his SNL monologue, and the first Washington sketch. I think they did another one
the yes, the
when they
George
brought him
Washington
back,
sketch.
and I'm like, yeah, very funny. It doesn't. He's not really selling it as an actor in this sketch. Like he's funny because he's Nate Bargatze, a guy I think is funny, and I'm not like, wow, he's really embodying the role of George Washington. But I brought it up because on the new special, he has a joke where he's talking about his neighbors and how they have real jobs, but like how he doesn't really understand what they do. So his one neighbor is like an actuary, and he's like, I thought it was about birds, and he just like talks about that for a few minutes. I have a joke currently that I've been working on about how I don't know what any of my friends do for work, and
Yes.
I don't think they are the same joke, but I do think the same people who are like, oh, that's just the Jay Larson bit are going to be like, you stole that from Nate Bargatze. I was like, no, other people have neighbors and friends and they don't know what they do for work. It would be the same bit if I was like, oh yeah, my friend's an actuary. Isn't that a bird thing? But it's like, no, I don't know. I genuinely, the bit started because my friend and past and future podcast co-host, John Lunger, I don't know what his job is. I know where he works. We used to record the show in his office. I'm sure he's told me, but I could not for $1,000,000 give you a breakdown of what that man does in that office over the course of a day, you know? Like I just don't. But that made me realize I don't know what most of my friends do. Like the jokiest line in it is if an animal doesn't do your job in the busy world of Richard Scarry, I don't know what you guys are getting up to every day. And I already brought her up once, but my friend Aaliyah Brown's like, that joke makes you seem so unlikable. And it's like, yeah, I think it's because I am unlikable. It's
Which is crazy because that's one of the comedy rules of just being like, look, if you work a 9 to 5 job, don't tell the audience that you work a 9 to 5 job. They need to think that you're a
yeah, no,
comedian 24/7.
that's been dead for a while. I that is like that's some Al Martin advice, which should also be forgotten. Like we don't
Yep.
like. What are you talking about? It's everyone has 3 jobs now. What do you do?
Well, that's the thing I've said about the national average of people in their jobs throughout their lifetime. Most people have upwards of like 20 jobs
Yeah,
in their lifetimes. Um, but to go back of like connecting things that you're like, oh, people think it's Jay Larson, people think it's Nate Bargatze. I just sat down. We didn't finish it. I know the ending, but we started my wife and I watching Joker 2 last night, and similarly to you, hot take is I loved it,
yeah, it's great.
but the thing I didn't love so far is that my movie Sweetmeats, not to just talk about me, is premiering in March, and I was just like, fuck. This thing that we've had done for over a year and some change. I'm like, there's some similarities here. There is some similarities between this movie and Sweetmeats. Again,
I mean, a
not like
little.
little, but enough that I was thinking, oh man, is someone gonna watch this and be like, oh, you guys are just doing Joker too? And I'm like, no, like,
I
no, we're
mean,
not just doing Joker too.
I
This thing
I feel
other thing
like
you didn't like.
I feel like that would be a pretty big stretch for somebody to make that connection.
You
If
think
they
it's
said you're
just
doing
me?
Sweeney Todd, then you'd be like, well, yeah, obviously.
Well,
Um,
I mean, yeah, any of Sweeney Todd, Little Shop,
yeah, like,
any Faustian like
mhm.
monkey paw, like make a deal with the devil, or you want something, but in return you have to sell your soul in some other way. Like, yeah, yeah, or Macbeth. Like, if anyone, it's so funny because before we made the movie, a friend of mine who was familiar with our stage show we did in Chicago, Fleetwood Macbeth, and also familiar with my love of the movie Scotland, PA, which is Macbeth set in the 70s at a fast food restaurant. They don't eat people, but they're character wise, there's a lot of similarities. It's not a musical, but they were just like, yeah, yeah. How are you going to make sure that you don't just make Scotland, PA. And I was like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure that I know it well enough that I'm not gonna make the same pitfalls."
Hmm.
But, like, watching Joker 2, so maybe not the people will compare it as much, but when watching it, I was just like, "Oh, man, if there was as much vitriol for this thing," granted, no one's gonna see our movie, Sweetmeats, except for the Trauma
I mean,
fans.
nobody saw Joker 2, so probably
Well
it'll be roughly the same number of people. They're wrong.
well,
They
and
should. I like them both, but
the people that do, so it made me rethink the first Joker, though. That the first Joker was a commentary on people basically scar-facing Heath Ledger's Joker and making it such this, like, pop culture icon
yeah.
and, like, dressing up for Halloween like kids did for Freddy Krueger or any
Hmm.
horror icon. Like, you have these 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds dressing up as these serial killers, and there's something weird about that. There's something fucked up about that. And so I think the first Joker movie, besides talking a lot about mental health and the way it is
In the worst
perceived
way. They
in the worst
fumbled
way.
that ball so bad. It could like I don't like the first one. It is it's just King of
I do
Comedy with like a poorly
Agreed.
done attempt at like the focus on mental illness that just
It's
they do not
Taxi
stick that landing at all.
it's Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy. It's 2 Scorsese movies, 2 De Niro
Yeah.
Scorsese movies
Mhm.
that I like those other movies way more, and I like King of Comedy more than I do Taxi Driver. Um, but the second movie made me appreciate the first one a little bit more
Yeah, you need it to
because
get to
yeah.
the second one. So it's like, yeah, all right, I mean, I don't want to go back and honestly, I don't want to go back and watch either of them. But
No,
while I
one and
was
done.
while I was sitting alone in the theater watching Joker 2, I was like, I think because I went the opening weekend, there were already I saw some negative feedback online about it, but I'm like, I want to see before like reviews roll in from everywhere. I want to see this. So I went probably that Saturday, whatever. Kids went to bed. I went late, and it was like an hour in. I was like, I think this is kind of incredible, actually. Like,
Where's Daddy going?
yeah.
Where's Daddy leaving to? He's
So I
going to
did
see
that.
Joker 2 by himself.
I went and saw Nosferatu
Oh, I
after
would love
everybody went to bed on Christmas.
I saw Moana 2.
I was amazed that neither of my children were really that down bad to see Moana 2. I was prepared to go. My younger one doesn't like going to the theater. My older one, she was like, she would have gone. She's like, yeah, well, whatever, we can go. But they weren't. I thought they were going to be like beating down that door, like we got to go opening night. We got to live the magic that is Moana, based purely off of how many times I've seen the first one because of them.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not throwing it on. It's fine. It's a good movie. It is now like if I had to teach, 3-act structure, I would, historically use Star Wars as an example. I think Moana does it better. I don't think it's a better movie, but in terms of like plotting out hero's journey stuff, you can't beat Moana for refuse the call, answer the call, all that step by step. Moana nails it.
You're high.
No.
Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is
Yeah.
best exemplified in Wizard of Oz.
No, you're thinking of Moana. I see how you're confused because they both star young women as the protagonist and their songs. But what you meant to say was that I'm right in that Moana is one of the best examples of Joseph Campbell's hero's
Okay.
journey.
Where is Chicken? Where does Moana get inspired by Chicken and its id or its ego to then propel her to complete the adventure?
You mean when it eats the heart of Tafiti and then gets kidnapped by the coconut man and she has to rescue? Yeah, that.
You are high.
No, it's great. It's great. It's a great movie.
Moana is better than Star Wars or
No,
Wizard
that's not
of
what
Oz.
I said. It's a better example
Example
of the hero's journey.
I was yes.
I would
wasn't
rather
trying to
watch.
click- I wasn't trying to.
I would
clickbait.
rather probably watch Moana than Wizard of Oz. But I would rather watch Star Wars than just about anything that's not Buckaroo Banzai.
When's the last time you watched Wizard of Oz?
I've definitely watched Moana 400 times between now and the last time I watched Wizard of Oz.
I think Wizard of Oz will be very refreshing.
It's good. I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm,
I'm not like an old gay man here, just like
I think my wife and
like
daughters watched it before. My daughter, an older one, went to see Wicked.
oh yeah, my daughter has zero patience for Wizard of Oz. Like didn't want to have it. Like she's seen it done in enough other things. She's just like no, no,
Yeah,
thank you. Um,
it's
but I
boring and
also remember
scary.
liking. I also remember really liking Oz the Great and the Powerful, the Sam Raimi James Franco movie with Mila Kunis.
Why?
You have no love for like I love Return to Oz. I don't know, and I haven't seen
I
Wicked.
don't care about it as like a franchise. I like
Interesting.
I like the first one. I think it is a weird take. When I saw it on Threads recently, around the Wicked release, people were like, "Oh, it must have been incredible for people to like be in the theater in 1939." Is that Wizard of Oz 39?
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
1939, and then like when they transition to color and they see like a color movie for the first time, it must have blown their minds. It was like, no, it, you know, color existed before halfway through Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
wasn't. They do the transition really well. Like it is a nice use
yeah.
of the medium to go. All right, Kansas is black and white, Oz is color. Like a good choice, good use of the technology available. But other movies also did that. They used both.
Yeah,
Phantom of
and
the
one there
Opera.
also wasn't
Uh,
there wasn't such a hard like sepia because the opening of that movie isn't silver screen black and white.
right.
It's
It's
that weird like sepia that no other movie was doing. So it
mm,
already was something different when like if you look at like the so it goes from like sepia to
also it
like
wasn't a popular. It
Kodachrome.
wasn't well received at the time.
Oh, it was fine. It did
It
well.
was
I
not a
don't know that you
blockbuster
can
in
say.
1939. People were not
Oh, I
busting down the doors for Wizard of Oz.
think the three biggest movies in 1939, I think this is a Trivial Pursuit question, is The Great Dictator, Gone with the Wind, and Wizard of Oz.
Gone with the Wind sucks shit.
It's my parents just mentioned that during the
I like
holidays. They're just like, you know what we haven't seen in a long time? Gone with the Wind.
I like Wizard of Oz. I'm not disparaging it. I will disparage Gone with the Wind. It
So
sucks.
to
It's
go back
boring.
to go back to Joker, the one thing that they aren't doing, which bugs me, because I really want to see it, but I also understand that there's not a hard necessity for it, is there's a lot of similarities between Joker 2 and the Manson court case and Helter Skelter, the TV movie that came out of the Bugalosi novel, and the differences between what they sensationalized and they talk about that
Hmm.
versus the real court case and the actual mental health that is going on and the character, the boogeyman that they create. They talk about a TV movie that has been made and has come out since he has been arrested. It is something they bring up multiple times, and we never get to see it.
I was fact
I feel
checking
like
you while you were saying that.
okay, what was I wrong about?
So you got two of the three. Wizard of Oz was the second highest grossing. Gone with the Wind, which again sucks shit, was the number one. Number three. Have you seen Anochka?
Uh-uh.
Uh, it is very funny. It's a Greta Garbo movie. I think she's Russian. But there's a great scene of a guy's trying to get her to laugh, and she's like this stone faced Russian woman, and he's like trying so hard, and she's just sitting there at the table, not ignoring him, but like not reacting in the way that he is expecting her to. And then like he falls over or something dumb, and she loses her mind, and it's one of the funniest scenes uh, committed to film in all time. But maybe was Wizard of Oz maybe not critically well received at the time? Is that what I'm thinking of?
I don't know because I remember it
I
being
know it's
pretty good.
not like A Wonderful Life where like it bombed, it didn't make any money, people didn't like it, and then because it slipped into the public
Copyright,
domain and
blah blah
then
blah.
TV
Yeah,
channels could just put it on at Christmas, everyone's like, what a time, because they already liked Frank Capra for his other work at that point. So they're like, what a lost classic. Oh, but I don't know. I watched that again the other night and it's fine, but
fine.
it should have been so he's on the bridge, right? He's ready to jump. He's like, I wish I was never born. That's not his regret. His regret's not being born. It's his regret is that he didn't go to Europe when he had the chance because he stayed because his dad had a stroke. So he never left Bedford Falls. So the alternate universe that Clarence should have shown him was this is what Bedford Falls looks like if you left when you were 20. And
Nothing changes
and it
because you're
rules.
not that significant.
Right.
Yeah, like
right. Well,
you
because the
fucking narcissistic piece of shit, Jimmy Stewart.
well, because the big things that change that like really make him regret it are stuff that happened to him when he was a kid. His brother would have drowned, and then the pharmacist would have poisoned the kid because he was so distraught that his son died. Those are the two things that he stops. But then the rest of it is like, I don't know, your wife's a librarian. I don't know. This guy doesn't own the bar. This other guy does. But if they showed him, this is what Bedford Falls looks like if you were 20, right? Things are great. Everyone's having a good time. You're over there having the time of your life. I don't think he goes back and then unswitches. But then I watched, I did a double feature because I couldn't fall asleep of that and The Family Man, the Nick Cage movie, where it is basically the opposite. He starts, you're George Bailey if you left Bedford Falls. So he's like rich stock trader guy. And then he wakes up with the girl that he left when they were in college, and he's got like a family and stuff. So like, yeah, that's what Clarence should have shown George Bailey.
Which is also, at the end of the day, it ends up being their version of A Christmas Carol. It's Dickensian.
Yeah, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life
ways.
is literally based off of a Dickens story.
Do they say that?
Yeah.
And It's a Wonderful Life? Like, does it say at the end, like, based off of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol or
no,
whatever?
it's based off of a different Charles Dickens story.
Do more fact checking. Like, what year did Great Dictator? Did Great Dictator come out in 40? Because I always thought those are the three movies
Great
of
Dictator was
1939.
40.
Okay. So then, yeah. Okay,
It's a Wonderful Life is loosely based on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But in the credits, it's just based off of a story by Charles Dickens.
Oh, they give him story by credit. So, Joker 2 not having the cutaways to the awful TV movie because there's some what was her name? Not Patty. Patty Hearst.
Mm-hmm.
There's some Patty Hearst. Like I really enjoyed the growing up and watching a lot of things about like Son of Sam and the trial about that and Manson of like the late 60s, early 70s, or just the sensationalization of media in the 70s with true crime, because that's kind of where it begins. Of figuring out like, oh, we can use television, we can use media to talk about this. And in Joker 2, it's the first live telecast trial. So there was a lot of that I thought was really interesting. And besides that, the acting, I think is great. I love the musical moments.
I do the musicals. And I don't really go in for musicals typically, but in that movie, I think they used it so well.
And when they first do the Hotel Arkham rooftop dance, before that started, I was like, you know what? Right now would be a really good time for a dream ballet to set us into the second act, just using the structures of musical. And like it is a dream ballet, and I'm like, yeah, I like this. Like I'm okay with this. But I could also understand anybody that went in there that did not get the satire. I don't know what would be a better term to explain the first movie of what they were saying about Heath Ledger's Joker and how that kind of took the world by storm. Of what they're saying, they're like, okay, if you didn't get it in the first movie, we're going to make sure you get it in the second
I do
movie.
also think people misunderstood the ending of Joker 2, which I am about to spoil, so skip ahead, I guess. 2 minutes, or just, I don't know, go do something else. But when the guy who kills Joker does like the Heath Ledger cuts on his face, everyone's like, oh, so now that's gonna be the Heath Ledger Joker. No, dummy. It is showing you in a way that you will understand, because you have this reference for this other movie, that this person is going to be a Joker. He is continuing the legacy. It is a short visual way of getting that information across in a way that, like, I think people forget that's what movies are. Like, it is, you are using a medium to get an emotional reaction from people, and you're using information that you assume that they have to move the story along. And the thing that drove me crazy about people not liking it the most was when they're like, "Oh, Harley Quinn wouldn't do it." Shut up, shut your whole face, shut up. Watch the
Well, and
movie,
also
watch the
everything you were
characters
saying
that
of,
are in
like,
the story you are watching. And
you're like,
and
oh, is that a young Heath Ledger? Is that what Heath Ledger's Joker becomes?
where does
It's
this put
like,
it in the
no,
timeline, man? Shut up.
this is a contained thing. As soon as Harley Quinn or Lee approached Joaquin Phoenix's Arthur Fleck, I was just like, oh man, she is using him.
Yeah.
Just like the way they did it. Like, I don't think they were trying to hide it. I don't think they're
It's
the
like a
Steve
theme of the
Coogan
movie.
scene.
Everybody in the movie is using him for something.
100%. And as soon as Steve Coogan appeared, I was like, oh man, again, my knowledge of Manson, I was like, this is the Geraldo Rivera Manson interview that he did. Like, this is like, I liked the way they went from the widescreen Panavision down to the 4:3
Mm-hmm.
to look like the TV interview, like all of it. I was just like, yeah, this is all working for me. And I don't, not even a complaint, just more of a recognition was, I have recognized more in the last 10 years, and it makes me interested to go back and see maybe some other movies. Some more artier films I've really loved showing a condensed version of what the message of the movie is at the top of the movie. And my only examples off the top of my head are Joker with the cartoon, My
Yeah.
Shadow and Me, or whatever that they
Great.
do, the Warner Brothers, the kind of Tex Avery cartoon
Loved
they
it.
do. But that is the whole movie before you watch the
Yeah.
movie, just condensed.
I was on board
down.
from the moment that started.
Yeah, I liked it. I got it. I wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's that thing too of like seeing enough bad press that I'm not influenced by it and I don't care, so I'm giving it even more leeway. But Midsommar shows that with Ari Aster, he shows a mural that goes from left to right, and you see in drawings and almost like cave drawings and almost like a folklore cave drawing what the trajectory of the movie is going to be. And another movie that's done that, typically horror, The Substance with Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, they show a condensed version of the movie in this kind of little short film before the movie starts.
Haven't seen it.
And I wonder what the impetus is for doing that, or why that is kind of a trend in these artier movies. I think it's to subliminally be like, I want to implant in your brain when this movie goes down the storybook way that you're not going to be surprised by it, because I kind of gave you a Cliff Notes version of it right at the top of the movie.
I'm trying to think of older examples of movies that do that. I mean, I'm sure there are. It's not like a new technique, but
Yeah, it has to have been done. I
mean,
feel like I've
Romeo and
clocked
Juliet
it
does
more
it.
recently.
Like the opening speech is like, "Hey, here's what's about to happen," and then it gets into it.
Hey, dum-dums.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't go point for point of being like, "Hey, guess here's exactly," but it is like, "Look, this is the story that you're about to watch," and then you watch the story and you follow along and you get it. But I don't. I think it helps because, like I said, I think I put up a thread. Basically, and I might have said it on here too, but I'm like, I don't like the idea of canon in franchises
Yeah.
of I posted it after I saw a video of James Gunn breaking down what will and will not be considered canon moving forward in the DCU, and I was like, I don't care, man. Just make the movies. We'll figure out what parts you're talking about. Because the show Creature Commandos that is airing now is like the start of the new James Gunn DC universe. So he's like, everything from Creature Commandos forward canon. Anything they talk about in Creature Commandos happened. And I'm like, I don't care. None of it happened, right? It's all make believe, man. Use whatever parts of DC you want to get the story across. We'll figure it out. But then so many bros like chuds rose up out of the ground to be like, well then you don't care about storytelling, or like, oh, you don't want stories to be consistent. Oh, I guess Superman can just kill Godzilla. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, there's a difference between a story having logical consistency in its own world and an executive at Warner Brothers being like, you're allowed to say this, you're allowed to use this part from this other movie. Like, that's the part that I don't like. I don't think we need to pretend like there's an alternate universe where Spider-Man exists, and then I have to figure out which fake made-up universe this Spider-Man story is in.
No, that's Earth 427.
Yeah, that's the
like,
stuff that I hate.
That.
I hate multiverse stuff. I hate the idea that there is a correct canon. Like, let's say I get hired tomorrow. They're like, Glenn, can you write a Robin comic book? One of your favorite characters from all of media. Can you write a comic book about Robin? Like, sure.
Which just Robin, just the character, or like Tim Drake, Jason Todd,
we'll get
Dick
there.
Grayson?
So the brief
Ellie.
from DC is write a Robin book, right? We're launching a new Robin title, write a Robin story. And I'm like, all right, so we'll start with Jason Todd, cover kind of the gap year, and then bring in Tim Drake at the end. And then let's say he goes to fight Clayface, right? Jason Todd is fighting Clayface. I don't want to have a Warner Brothers executive be like, well, it can't be that Clayface because canonically that guy didn't get his that's Clayface 3, and Clayface 3 didn't get his Clayface powers until well after Joker killed Jason Todd. I'm like, shut up. I want this one. I want the weird actor Clayface, not this other one.
I like your,
because it tells the story I'm trying to tell. You know,
your executive producer giving their notes as if they know canonically what has happened and like historically. I'm pretty darn sure the executive notes aren't going to the well of their like a Bible, like a showrunner, of being like, oh no, you can't do that because that's going to piss off a bunch of nerds. I think their notes are far more stupid.
There would obviously also be stupid notes, but I think you're wrong. I think that is exactly what.
You think that's happening now?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what the editorial board of comic book companies are doing. They're like, we got to make sure this all fits. That's why they relaunch their dumb universes every 5 years, because they're like, oh, you can't tell one story for 80 years and think you're going to have logical consistency throughout, and then think anything you make that references anything that happened before is going to be in one coherent timeline. You have to just accept that it is a story and let people tell the story they're trying to tell. Like, don't act like Batman is real when you're reading a Batman comic book. Act like it is a story, because it is.
I tried to explain why I didn't enjoy Moana 2. Lin-Manuel Miranda has nothing to do with it as far as I was able to see in the quick credits that I looked at. Not music, not story. And I feel like it shows. The criticism I had heard before seeing Moana 2 was that the music's not very good. And I agreed, but then also I thought the movie was pretty hot garbage. You know how the coconut tribe in Moana?
Yeah.
How they shoot darts that paralyze you? So they explain in Moana 2
no need.
That the serum that is used in the coconut tribe darts, the coconut tribe that wears masks, even though they're
Kokomora.
they're coconut warriors who are wearing bone masks. Um, Comes from this booger monster that
Sure.
they have living on their ship with them, and it's what the booger monster secretes when it sneezes. That is what creates the serum that they then use on their darts to shoot at people to paralyze them. Now,
We don't need to explain
because they
everything. Movies.
because of the Joseph Campbell, they need to bring. They need to explain why Moana needs a crew for this. Right, she can't go on her own, so she has a crew from her island of this woman who is a spaz tech boat builder who will not stop. Everything has to be perfection. She is nonstop. She comes with this old curmudgeon farmer. He comes with. So it's the Joseph Campbell. Like you got to build your Tin Man, your
Hmm.
Scarecrow, blah blah blah, all that, or your Chewbacca, your Han, your Leia, or other examples. Um, the coconut, one of the coconut guys joins the crew, but before that, when we explain the booger monster for the serum, we also have already paralyzed Moana and her troop.
I think you're right about this
So
because this sounds so boring.
so stupid. It's like I'm just clocking. Like I don't sit there trying to deconstruct something and be like, "This is why it's bad." It's when it hits me in the face and I just can't blindly eat my popcorn
Yeah.
and enjoy the journey. So they are all paralyzed, but all they can do is talk. And they're trying to fight this giant clam that looks like an island, but they've been paralyzed by the coconut
Yeah.
guys. And they show the booger monster. Well, that's where it comes from. And they're like, well, we could help you, but we're all paralyzed. So unfortunately, you've done this. And then the coconut people are just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. We just showed you the snot. That's where the paralyzing dart comes from. The anecdote, they're like, if you could help us, we could help you guys right now. The anecdote is
Antidote.
that the booger monster has to walk through you because he is like a gelatinous booger monster. And the residue that he leaves when he walks through you is also the serum to remove the
Sure.
paralysis.
Okay. Okay, Moana too.
Why?
I don't know.
There's so much. And then you know what they do? They MCU it by adding a post credit sequence, and they have a Thanos like thunder storm monster who isn't done. He got thwarted this round. And so if there is a Moana 3,
Well,
he'll be back.
uh, the only thing I know about Moana 2 is a behind the scenes thing. It has the same route to existence that the David Lynch movie Mulholland Drive has, which was originally it was a TV pilot. They were going to do a Moana series and then scrapped that idea. And they're like, you know what, just add a little bit more. Let's just make it a feature. So that was supposed to be the start of a Moana TV show. And they're like, no, let's just do Moana 2. We'll probably make more money that way.
I have a little bit more of a history with Moana in general. I played on a gay men's softball league with my brother up in Chicago when I lived there. I was the only heterosexual person on the team playing, but the coach's husband worked for Disney.
Mhm.
I have two weird Disney connections. My theater chair and improv coach in college, he created the kindergartners on Recess.
Okay.
Um, so that is hearing about the Recess. The original idea was pitched, and they're like, "All right, we need to fill out the world," and then Disney had different pockets of teams, like 6-person teams. Go, okay, you create the first graders, you create the
Yeah.
kindergartners, you create the parents, and that's how they farmed it out, and they all pitched what they think would be the best way to expand the world of Recess. And so, like, one group pitched that the kindergartners were basically little Rex Harrisons or, Dr.
Yeah.
Doolittles. They were just very proper, very British, and like wearing suits, like Boss Baby, right? That's one way to go. That's one end of the spectrum to go. And so his group was, well, what if they're savages?
Right.
And that's the one that got picked. And I did ask him, 'cause after watching Recess at too old of an age, I had already seen Heathers. I was like, wait, are Ashley, and Ashley Heathers? And he was like, yeah. He's like, that was their pitch. And I was like, great. So for Moana, the coach's husband that I played on this gay softball league, he worked for Disney, and for years he had been working on this tribal princess story, which is basically Moana. Like one team was working on the Ice Princess, which ended up becoming Frozen. So he
Hmm.
got to see for 20 years, 30 years,
Yeah, that
them
was in
working on that.
development for forever. Like
Right, because
Disney was alive when that started going into development.
they take all of these classic
Hmm.
stories, these children's
And they
books and
ruin
these
them.
and they try to make them Disneyfied.
Yeah.
And so Moana has been one that has been worked on for years, and they got really close to making it, and then it didn't happen. It fell through, and he was part of that team. He was very bitter because when Lin-Manuel Miranda came in, and they were like, "Which one of these properties that we have been working on for years do you connect with that you would like to helm?" And he was like, "A tribal one." And he's like, "And I will write some songs, but basically this is mine now. No one will know or remember all
Right.
of the previous work that has been put together to build it to where it is now." And he was just really bitter when Moana came out. He was one of the few people, like everybody else is like, Lin-Manuel Miranda, yay, he made American history interesting, and he's like, fuck Lin-Manuel.
My older daughter right now is really into the musical Six, which is not a Lin Manuel Miranda property, but I think is a direct result of the success of Hamilton. So
Yes.
it's Louis XIV's wives like start a pop group essentially is the pitch, and she loves it. She listens to it a lot, and I forget I was driving somewhere with her, and I was trying to figure out how to do it without being like, "Ugh, what do you like about this?" But I'm like, what is it about this? What is it that you, an 11-year-old American girl, connect to so much about this story about the long dead wives of a king you did not know existed until you heard this thing? Uh, Out of like sheer curiosity, I'm not like trying to talk her out of it. I'm not like, oh, stop listening.
Mhm.
Like, fine, she can listen to what she likes, and it's just like, but I don't understand what about this story grabs you. And she's like, well, I like history and the songs are fun. And I was like, all right, sometimes that's the answer is it's fun. I was
Well, and
just overthinking it. I was like, why are we doing this? Like, what is it about?
well, so it brings up to back of our kids. Obviously, you are not a young girl. I am not a young girl. But we forget that like so much of what we glommed onto was very male centric
Yeah.
or very
Right. She could have just as
these are
easily been like, I
adults.
don't know. What about a movie in space where people fight with laser swords was so interesting to you, dummy? Like that would have been a fair comeback.
100% where there is one female. And so that's what I'm going to say is like my daughter Anna, whenever I've tried to introduce something to her, be like, hey, maybe we take a break from Bluey or maybe we take a break from whatever. Muppets, they may have some gender to some degree, but like that's not like the first and foremost thing
Right.
is
No
their
one's thinking
gender.
about Elmo's genitals. My 6-year-old is at the table behind me, so I'm trying to.
No one's. I like that you're like no one thinks about Elmo's genitals. Like I swear, if I Googled search right now,
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
there is
Somebody's thought a
a
lot about
community.
him. Oh, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
a 3.5, perpetually 3.5 year old a puppet. Um, is she will ask if I'm like, hey, do you want to? I will be like Amazon, be like, I see you like blah, maybe you will like blah, and I'm like, hey, maybe you would like this,
But you're just trying to
just
get
to
her to
watch
watch
something different.
Tomorrow War over and over again.
Just to watch the Edge of Tomorrow with Emily Blunt and
No,
Tom Cruise.
Tomorrow War, the Amazon produced Chris Pratt movie that Amazon is constantly trying to recommend to me. It's like, oh,
Oh my,
you
is
watched
that
Buckaroo
not
Banzai
old?
again. You like it
Yeah.
came out during the pandemic. I don't remember the exact year.
Okay.
But it's like that is Amazon's constant recommendation to me because it's an Amazon thing. It's like when Apple's like, "Oh, you watched that copy of Buckaroo Banzai you bought. You want to how you feel about Severance? You want to give Severance a chance?" And I'm like,
Hey,
guys,
buddy.
if I was going to watch Severance, I would have watched it by now.
Look, I'm like your friend. I'm like your friend. I'm recommending you something.
Yeah, I know
We're
what you
friends,
like.
right?
You like the things that I make,
Yeah.
right?
That are purely this platform's thing. Um, but she will say, if ever I'm like, hey, you want to watch this thing? She's just like, are there girls in it? And if I don't know the thing that well, I will be like, oh, let's take a look.
And
And
then you're
if there
secretly
are,
shocked how few girls there are.
yeah, it's G.I. Joe. And I'm just like, oh,
Scarlet.
surprisingly. uh, yeah, Duchess.
Yeah. Is it Duchess?
Oh, I don't know. So I wrote a parody back.
Yeah,
Oh God, this is
I
a
know you did.
project
I
that's
read
like
it.
15 years old. Yeah. Oh, you read
Yeah, you
Task
sent it to
Force
me.
United?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't
I
remember.
don't
Yeah.
remember
So I
anything
don't
about it
remember.
other than that you sent it to me and that it was a G.I. Joe parody.
So I didn't grow up with GI Joe. I knew the whatever that group was that made the fake PSAs where they redubbed it.
Yeah.
Like that's more of what I know of GI Joe, except for writing a parody of it, like
Right. Well, I
knowing
mean, because I'm so much
basic.
older than you, I got into G.I. Joe in a big way as a young child, but you probably wouldn't remember that. You wouldn't remember that time because of our huge age difference.
For 3 years, which we have
I had
some
some G.I. Joe.
cross.
Honestly, I was more of a Ninja Turtles kid. Ninja Turtles and He-Man were getting a lot more play than the G.I. Joes in the toy box, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know. Like I have Ninja Turtles a little bit more, but He Man. What was the other one? Mask.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, never really got down with Mask.
I don't know I know Transformers a little bit, but
Yeah, Transformers
again,
I got into in a pretty big way. Um I think Ninja Turtles is probably the biggest like toy cartoon franchise hybrid.
but everything we're saying though is male centric.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like there is one
There's
female
one
to the
girl. They
thing.
got one
So
girl
like
on all of them.
so like my daughter being interested in something that is more female dominated or genderless, like say the Muppets or whatever, like I get so like if she is into Taylor Swift or if she's into Lizzo or if she's into Six, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense because I wasn't watching what's the thing that's kind of the bronies, My
My
Little
Little Pony.
Pony.
I see.
Fuck,
My sister was big into My Little Pony and Rainbow Bright, and just by the fact that like we had a TV, so like I ended up watching a lot of the stuff that she wanted to watch, but she also had to put up with what her four brothers wanted to watch. So
Pee Wee Herman, as we've
yeah. So
discussed.
Pee Wee and Ninja
So,
Turtles.
but does it mean so? Has My Little Pony and Rainbow Bright have those properties gotten better?
Milo, I My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic is incredible children's television.
I've watched a little bit of the newer properties, and there
There's a
seems to
new
be
like
more of like
Netflix
a Game
version
of
that I don't
Thrones.
care about.
Yes.
Well, that's
Okay.
I did I was trying to do a bit about it. It's that it ended up being too similar to a Patton Oswalt bit. So like I
So
basically
basically, what we're finding out is that you rip off really
yeah.
big, good comedians.
Well, I don't even think it was a bit. I saw him do it like on panel on Conan or some other talk show. But so My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic specifically, because there's like a new Netflix version that
Mhm.
I haven't seen much of. It might also be good. It's just they did like a movie that I didn't really like, and then now there's like a series based on that movie. But Friendship is Magic period of My Little Pony, it was like genuinely really well done and interesting. And the joke about it was that my daughter didn't watch it in order. She would just like scroll through Netflix until she saw a picture she liked and watch that one. And that works for most children's television, but My Little Pony has like series and season long story arcs. So there'll be like a recurring theme of the show is they encounter a bad guy, right? And then they teach that bad guy about friendship, and then that bad guy is their friend now for the rest of the show. The guy who was Q on Star Trek
Yes.
does the voice of Discord, a bad guy, and like yeah, he starts out he's like the big bad I think in one of the seasons, but then through the magic of friendship, he's now just like he hangs out with Fluttershy, they're best buddies, he helps them. But if you watch it completely out of order, it is Game of Thrones. It is constant betrayal. It is like
Hmm.
why is Discord doing that? He was at Fluttershy's house for tea. He helped, find berries for her pet rabbit. Why is he trying to unmake reality?
I had a similar thing, and I did have some Barbie bits because my daughter had gotten into Barbie, but I had seen Taran Killam do. It was either on a podcast or a panel, which similar kind of interview styles, where he talked about how good the Netflix Barbie TV show and movies are, and I had also made that kind of same recognition of just being like, oh my gosh, like these aren't that bad. Like these are actually pretty fun to watch. These have like that Shrek element where they're like fun for parents, but also fun for kids, and they're not the dumbest Drek or whatever. But then I heard him do that. And I was just like, oh,
they're not. They weren't my favorite thing that my children found, but there's certainly worse.
Oh, way worse. It's I've mentioned it before.
Pony's like legit, like really well done. They got fun. Like Patton Oswalt does a voice in an episode. Weird Al does the voice in a couple episodes. I was submitting for a writing fellowship years ago, and they're like, you have to write a spec script from a show on this list. So I looked, and it was like Archer and Bob's Burgers and like shows that I watch and enjoy and know a fair bit about. But then I saw on the list was also My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, and I was like, if I'm being honest with myself, of the shows on this list, the one that I know the most about right now is just based purely off of watching it with my kids. This is the one that I think I can nail, like the voice and tone of. So I wrote a spec script about the Weird Al character coming back and needing help from the main character ponies. I didn't get the fellowship, but I was like, I don't know. I feel good. It's a good My Little Pony script.
Well, the one of the creators of Bob's Burgers, Lauren Bouchard, who is one of the creators of King of the Hill, I had found a contact to and was in correspondence, and I was just like, all right, this is closer to the beginning of Bob's Burgers. I was like, can I send in a Bob's Burgers spec script? Like, you sure can. It's not going to get read.
Yeah.
He's like, everybody wants to send in a Bob's Burgers spec script.
Well, it kind of goes back and forth in production of like when they want to read a spec script, do they want to read a spec script for that show or for a different show? Like,
right.
It depends. I'm sure it varies from, studio to studio or whatever. But I remember when I was in college, they're like, yeah, if you want to get, hired to write Seinfeld, you write an episode of Seinfeld and you send that to, somebody's agent or whatever. But now they're like, no, because if they're not reading, they can't read scripts about their thing, because then if they end up using any of the idea, they're like, you stole that. But then I heard it switched back, and now it's, I don't know. I've had no
SNL,
success.
SNL or Conan or any of the shows that I've submitted to, you sign before you send anything in, or if they send you a thing that says, based on this agreement that I've sent to you, anything you send us can be used. If it appears, you have no claim over it, or whatever. Who was it? Was it Gary Shandling wrote for Red Fox? Wrote for Sanford and Son or something, and I just love the idea of writing these spec scripts or these properties that exist that are so different from like your sensibilities. Like if Glenn, if you wrote for like a show on BET, like a Tyler Perry show,
right,
and they're like, yeah, bring him in, like, would you be the token hire, or would it just be like, man, you're really good at writing for this large cast of African American women or whatever?
Think of spec scripts that I have written over the years.
Oh, Alf.
I wrote an Alf spec script. Again, that's another one. I'm like, I like it a lot. I mean,
should we do an episode where we do a live reading
of that? I did a table read of it at the time, and I forget which one of my friends read Alf, but they had never seen the show and were not familiar with the voice. So like we played clips and they tried their best, but it didn't really come across. what I've written an Alf one,
Yeah.
My Little Pony, the Thundercats reboot.
Oh, okay.
From years ago. I wrote that, and then it got canceled immediately. And it was for a sample script for an animated show that was in early pre-production that didn't end up happening. But a friend of mine was working on it, and I had other specs, but he's like, I need to see something that is like an action cartoon because that's what this was going to be. And I was like, okay. I mean, I'm familiar. Like it was basically like, a GI Joe and Ninja Turtles kind of thing. He's like, yeah, I grew up on those. I can churn one out. He's like, but it's got write something for a current show. And I was like, got it. I was watching the Thundercats reboot, really getting into it. Wrote an episode of that. The week that I was writing it was when that show got canceled. And it's like, well, I hope this other show gets picked up because I'm never going to be able to send this to anybody again. I did a Community spec script where they're basically the A team, and they have to. I forget, they're stealing something from City College. It's been a while.
You basically wrote an A-team spec script and then made it Community.
Well, I mean, Community. Most episodes of Community are we're doing this TV show thing from another thing, so it felt fitting. And then I did write a Bob's Burgers that I believe was called Fart Symphony. That again, I think was pretty good. That was for a writing fellowship as well, where I think the main story is Gene has his keyboard in the stall at the bathroom, and he ends up sampling his farts, and then goes to perform a song at the talent show, but the keyboard's on the wrong setting, so all the keys are fart sounds, but everybody loves it. And then I think the problem was I don't remember what the B story was, but I was really not as didn't feel as strongly about the B story. I was like, this fart thing's hilarious, but Linda needs something to do.
I think we missed our calling that our podcast should have been called Spec Scripts, where we just bring different people on each week and read their spec script for whatever property.
We can launch another property.
Sure, we can launch another podcast that nobody listens to.
Well, when one of the times that Community got canceled, I was writing for a site called Geekosystem, and one of the things that we did was like we would do episode recaps of shows we were watching. So my friend and I think, took turns writing the Community recaps. So then when I think it got canceled, I forget the many cancellations of Community, but
yeah,
before they brought it back for the last season at Yahoo, my friend and I were like, well, we liked writing these Community recaps. What if we'll write the next season since they're not going to do it? So we wrote as episode recaps what the 6th season of Community would have been. So it wasn't
for
like
shows that didn't exist.
Yeah,
you just
it wasn't
wrote a
full
synopsis as a
episodes.
recap. Yeah.
It wasn't full episodes or anything. It was just like, oh, so this is what happened this week on alternate reality where Community didn't get canceled.
Yeah.
And I don't remember a single. I think I might have dropped the A-Team storyline into one of those, but I don't remember any of those specifics because it was a very long time ago.
I think you and I should write with our knowledge of a spec script that I wrote, which I guess it's not a spec script. I guess it's just a pilot. Was called oh my gosh, it had a good name, but it was Semi Truck Dad. Maybe that's not a great name, but it was the movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone where he's arm wrestling. Yeah. So I've been a big screaming at the hilltop that Real Steel with Hugh Jackman and Over the Top are the same movie.
Didn't see Real Steel, but sure.
It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah,
he drives a truck, but he has
but I didn't see
Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and he's going along with his estranged son. It's the same fucking movie.
Okay.
But he has a the Jake Lloyd ripoff, like a Phantom Menace type of whiny kid with him the whole time. So I wrote a Cartoon Network style 20-minute cartoon that was called Semi Truck Dad, where it was a Transformers like rig, who finds out that he has a human estranged son, that his son rides inside of him, and
Okay.
they drive cross country while he performs uh, arm wrestling matches as a semi truck that can
Love it.
change into a dude and
It
do
does
arm
need a
wrestling.
better title, but
Yeah,
that's very funny.
it might have been Semi Dad. So it's like he's semi a dad, but he's also a semi truck. That might have been the name of it. I can't remember.
I think Truck Dad
But
is cleaner.
Truck Dad?
Yeah.
What the Truck Dad? Uh, he's semi dad. He's semi a dad. But I'm not going to try to sell the title. No one's buying. But I think you and I should do an A team like show or write one out. But it is not the A team. It's like the D squad or something like that. I know that's a little bit Suicide Squad-y, but that there is a team for every level of emergency.
Well, I do
Where
like
does it fall on the color chart?
I like the A Team so much. I'm rewatching it right now. I gave up on the last season of the Drew Carey show, so I started rewatching the A
Because it's
Team.
garbage.
There's some regrettable disguise choices by Hannibal. I remembered Mr. Lee, the Chinese man character that he does, and I'm like, all right,
Oof.
I remember that. I remember that's not going to be fun. He does full on blackface at one point, which I did not
George
remember.
Papard, and he's at the end of his life, right?
And you really would have
Like,
thought he would have learned
he's
from
less in the
Breakfast
show.
at Tiffany's.
Yes,
you know,
Mickey Rooney.
but
Yeah,
you thought Mr. Unioshi would have taught him something, but he's like, no, I can do it better. I can also do an Asian character and a black guy.
in the late to mid '80s.
Yeah. It was first season, so it would have been 83.
You brought up. I didn't recognize the season 5 cast photo with Robert Vaughn, which I know
Yeah.
I'm a big Robert Vaughn fan. But the bottom right hand guy,
Frankie
who is
Dishpan
their
Santana.
Hispanic character.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Frankie Dishpan Santana.
Why is he Dishpan Santana?
I forget. Season 5 is bad. Like it is.
But is season 4 good?
Yeah, it's good
Okay.
from start to finish until season 5. Well, because season 5 is
They're no longer on the run.
they
They're
get
hired again.
by
Yeah.
essentially a spy agency, and you're like, no, because I think the season finale of 4 is the trial of the A Team, where
Right.
basically that's
Love any trial.
I think that's when Robert Vaughn shows up and they kind of get exonerated. So then it's like, all right, well now what are we gonna do? Like, what if they're wacky spots? Ugh.
Does the intro change anymore? Like with season 5?
I know season 1 for the jump from season 1 to 2. In season 1, it's in 19. Oh no, in season 1, it is 10 years ago. A crack commando unit was sent to prison for a crime they didn't commit, and then from season 2 on, it's in 1972.
Okay.
But I don't remember if it changes for season 5. Well, because I mostly watched it, in reruns on TV Land after school. I would get home from school, and then there would be 2 episodes of the A Team that I would put on and I'd invariably fall asleep at some point. But season 5 didn't get a lot of replay because it was pretty universally reviled because it sucks. But I'm already on season 2, so honestly, by next week I'll have watched all of it and I could give you the full season 5 recap.
I kind of don't want to watch it, and I want to write a Cartoon Network like show or animated, not animated, that is our version of the A Team, but in like this world. Like not making them cool, not making them any better, making them the same as they were in the 80s.
Oh, I wonder if I can even. I wrote a pilot in college where it's not a Dungeons and Dragons pilot, but it is a group playing Dungeons and Dragons, and one guy being like, I wish we could just do this in real life. And then everyone's like, well, you can't because magic isn't real and you can't walk around with a sword. And he's like, no, but like just the thing where we kind of like go town to town and help people. And like, that's our job. And they're like, well, you can't. And he's like, I think I can. And like, he just like sets out to do that. And it is just like kung fu essentially, but instead of like being a kung fu master, it is just a nerd showing up and be like, does anybody need anything? And they're like, I think the first one is it is literally like a lady's like, there's rats in my basement. Could you take care of the rats? Because that is like a common, I think it's in Skyrim or Morrowind or one of them where it's like, yeah, like like it's a dumb mission that is in most towns. Someone needs you to kill the rats in their basement. Sometimes it's a much bigger monster, but he is just like trying to deal with actual rats, but has no like exterminator experience. Quickly gets out of hand, and it's like, yeah, like that to me is funny. Of just like this guy wants this grand adventure, but that doesn't exist, so he just has to like do kind of mundane tasks, but he tries to make them as exciting as possible.
And I think I mean, because rarely on the A Team did they span, unless it was a 2-part episode. Trial of the A Team. I feel like I need to maybe watch that because I do love any '80s trial of like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
I love the idea that they're just like, we're gonna civil suit, we're gonna put the Incredible Hulk on trial.
Yeah.
Like fucking stupid. Like I love a courtroom drama. Talking about Joker 2. But with the rats, see, I feel like so many of those properties tie into one another that if we were doing like an A Team like thing and they're going from town to town, they're overqualified, right? If they are this ragtag group of like they each had their specialty and they were Vietnam buddies, I mean, probably don't lean into that. But if a woman is like, someone keeps on stealing my pies off the windowsill, or I've got rats in the basement, they go down there and it turns into like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like Rat King. It's actually not just a rat infestation. The more they dig into it, the more they find out that it's this like big, massive like empire of these rats that are like slowly taking over, and that they are able to defeat it.
If the D&D thing, if that was animated, I think that would be the take on it.
The route.
Like it does get genuinely pretty buck wild. I do like the idea of like, you know, somebody reaches out, they contact the A Team, which they do make like very difficult to do. That's why George Papard dresses up as a Chinese guy inadvisably, but they go through the trouble of contacting the A Team, and they're like, I mean, we honestly, that's kind of beneath us. Like we got these other guys. If you want us to call Steve, we can call. This seems like something. This is kind of Steve's area, you know. And then like you're Steve, and it's just like you're not this like tactical genius. You're just like a guy. You've got like a flatbed, you know. You can like haul some stuff.
Yeah, I've got a team. Yeah. I've got a team of guys that like
it's also each
have their. Yeah, like this guy, he can do things with rubber bands. Like if when push comes to shove, he can really do some amazing things with rubber band. Well, look,
like so the A Team is frequently welding stuff. I do think if it was like more of an arts and craft themed.
Yeah, like popsicle sticks and Elmer's glue.
Which was a real thing in the military. Look up the Ghost Army. It was a unit in World War II that like used arts and crafts to convince Nazis that there was a much bigger army than there was in certain areas. So they would build like an inflatable tank and then like blow it up, and they're like, they got tanks, but it's just like a literal balloon that's shaped like a tank.
I love that it's Warner Brothers style Looney Tunes.
Yeah, and it's I'm amazed that there is not 100 movies about these guys, except for I think a lot of the times the mission worked, but in a way that it wasn't like that exciting. It was just like, we need to convince them that there's, you know, 2,000 troops over here. So they would do it. And they're like, okay. So they went the other way because they thought there's all these troops.
And that was it.
Yeah.
They celebrated.
Like, great job. But I think if like the B Team is like, yeah, look, we're not going to show up with guns, but like, you know, we can do cardboard cutouts real good, or so, like we can, you know, we'll put up like a fake billboard in a timely fashion that'll convince them of something. But then it is the thing of like, well, that still has to be exciting.
That is the kind of storyline that I would love to do. Is like, there's this, say it's this militia that is kidnapping people and child labor or whatever, but they drive down through this highway in these vans that are all these kidnapped people, and so the B team gets hired. And so how the ruse that they think of isn't just helping that truckload of refugees be escaped. What they do is they put up a billboard for this restaurant that looks so enticing, like a Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, that it makes the people who are driving the semi truck of these refugees pull off and go and visit. And they've basically opened up like a Bennigan's or a Chuck E. Cheese to have them come, and like they're working the staff and they've
Yeah.
built all these animatronics or whatever. And it's this giant ruse to then
Olivia.
get the refugees escaped at the end.
Yeah.
That's that is the kind of thing I would
The
love.
A Team does do a
for a
bit of that
TV show.
sometimes.
Yeah,
But I do think, but like they start with that plan and then it still just turns into shooting the bad guys and blowing stuff up.
explosions. Yes,
Because
yeah,
there's an episode where they get into a town and the town has arrested the leader of a motorcycle gang, so his gang is going to come break him out. So the town arrests the A Team, and then the A Team is like, if you let us out, we'll help you. But it sounds like you're about to get attacked by a pretty vicious motorcycle gang. So the way that they throw the motorcycle gang off first is there's like an abandoned office building in town. They paint that to look like the sheriff's station so that the motorcycle guys attack that first. But it's like, good plan, but that is just like a 2-minute thing, and then it pretty quickly escalates to just let's just shoot at the bad guys.
oh, and the hard thing is that the A Team is a television ridiculous version of the Magnificent Seven
Yeah,
or the
and
Seven Samurai.
one thing that I do like about it, and I think this was like a feature, not a bug. It's not like, oh, they took this from this thing. Was in the 80s, it was harder to like watch a movie from the 70s, you know? Like you
Yes.
couldn't stream Sorcerer, for example. So there's an episode where it's Sorcerer. The A Team is trying to get a truckload of sweaty TNT to a mine, and you know if they hit a bump, they're gonna blow up. And you're like, yeah, that's the movie Sorcerer. I don't think they're like. I think everyone making that episode is like, you guys want to make a Sorcerer episode? They're like, hell yeah, Sorcerer's great.
They weren't doing it like we got to rip this off. We have no ideas. They're just
Yeah,
like, you
they're like
guys
you
want to do
couldn't
Sorcerer
just
this
watch
week?
Sorcerer whenever you wanted in 1984. So, sure, just let's do
But that's
an episode of the A
that's
Team
that
that is like this thing that we like, or like yes,
that's
there's a lot
television.
of Magnificent Seven episodes of the A
You
Team.
Man, you go back. I mean, that is the advent of television, which the television boom is late 50s, early 60s, where you have, okay, if you can't do James Bond,
Sure.
if you want to do James Bond, you're going to do Wild Wild West, you're going to do Man from Uncle, you're going to do all of these espionage ripoffs, which in the 80s, I think was the next boom of that. The 70s was more of the boom, I think, for film noir television.
Hmm.
You have a lot of detectives on television. The 60s, a lot of military, a lot of espionage, some superheroes, not as much. But I love Three Amigos. Like, Three
Yeah.
Amigos has its issues, but the fact that it is this satire of the film industry of that time and it is the Magnificent Seven, it's long in the tooth and it's a little indulgent in some
Hmm.
areas, but same could be said of most SNL sketches,
Sure.
so it
It's a
it,
fun
it
idea.
works for me. But I do think the hardest thing about animation is obviously finding someone to animate. Uh, but I do like a uh, parody, not straight parody version of the A Team that could also live within so many of these other genres. Just like you were saying, like Sorcerer. It's like, okay, well, did this episode of A Team want to be Moonraker?
Yeah.
So then you have B.A. Baracus that doesn't want to get in a plane, but now
He
you got
hates
to
it. He
convince
hates
him.
flying.
Yeah, you got to put him in a space shuttle. Like, then you put Mr. T just with a fake, like one of those big ball, like spaceman helmets, but the rest of him is ripped out, still wearing like the wife beater or whatever, the red tank top. Like that. Shit like that cracks me up.
Yeah.
But I mean, probably not a market for it for the common
I don't know.
person.
There's probably there's probably a lot of roughly 40-year-old dudes who would get down with it, based purely off of you and me specifically. um, but
Well, it's
we,
like Roger on American Dad is kind of their
yeah,
version of doing Alf.
right.
But what if he was
But the fact that it's Paul Lind is like, who's that
Paul
for?
Lynn? Yes.
Is it for me? Because
For me, I mean, it's for me
when I
because
watched
like
that, I was like, is the alien doing Paul
yeah.
Lind? Because that's incredible.
Oh, when I'm like, oh, Seth MacFarlane, this
Yeah.
is his favorite character. Like he is loving doing this. I guess we should wrap up.
We should.
I didn't know what this as I never do. I never know what the episodes are gonna be about. But I love that it went from Joker 2 to what we will do on stage versus what we like comedically to then peeling back more of what we like comedically and how it influences what we talk about. But to go with your daughter and her love of Six, I am so glad that there is more viable representation for a broader landscape of people and not just be like, hey, watch this thing about this guy with a gun.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything about this? Like, oh, it's got one female character and she's always in distress. So
I think Amy Allen really led the way in terms of, because she is rarely the one in distress on the A Team, which I like. Which for like 83 is pretty progressive to be like, oh, she's not April O'Neil constantly getting kidnapped.
Is her dad a scientist though who's been kidnapped, or is that just a different A Team storyline that I'm thinking of?
Oh, there's a lot of we gotta save this lady's dad, but I don't think Amy Allen's dad.
She didn't have a scientist dad.
No,
Okay.
the first,
I didn't know if that
the
was like
first,
her introduction.
The first episode, the two-parter Mexican sleigh ride, is her coworker at the newspaper is kidnapped, so they have to go to Mexico to save him. So she finds the A Team and then basically threatens them. She's like, I will either join you or expose you. And they're like, okay, you can be in the A Team.
Being exposed.
Yeah. But she's like a legit asset to the team. But we are recording this on New Year's Eve. Real quick before we go, what do you got any plans? Yeah. What are you doing?
We are going to see if we can take the kids to this like picnic outdoor brewery thing. I'm not sure 100% how our 5.5-year-old Anna is cognizant of it being New Year's Eve or it being a thing, but we're also not going to try to go too late. So we're going to pick up the boys from this. The boys are at the sitter today, and Anna is with her Nana. She spent the night last night, which is great. Gave my wife and I each a day to kind of get things done, like a podcast. I'm going to do some exercising later. So we're going to go to this thing where there's pizza, there's games for kids, and it starts at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. We'll go to that maybe for an hour and some change to kind of like celebrate the New Year's. What are you guys doing / do you have any soft goals that you want to try to accomplish for 2025?
We are going to Peeps Fest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where they drop a giant fiberglass marshmallow peep. But they do it at 5:30 in the afternoon so that your children can still like do a fun ball drop thing, but then, go to sleep at a reasonable time. My kids aren't.
They're both from New Jersey? Is Peeps?
They're from
Peeps
Bethlehem,
New
Pennsylvania.
Jersey creation? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Just Born is based in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. They also they sponsor a ton of stuff at Steel Stacks where I perform a lot and have recorded things. But yeah, like you go and you can, do s'mores with a peep. There's usually like a peep mascot walking around. They give you a bunch of peep swag. It is a pretty on brand event, but the kids love it. So we go, but you're done by 6. You're like in the car on your way home. I'm doing a show.
Like, does it attract people that shouldn't be there because it's called Peep Fest? Like it comes like people with binoculars and it's just
well, we went the first year we went was like 2021. So like still, I think they canceled it in 2020 and it was like really limited crowd size. the first year we went, and we're like, oh, this is great. And then the next year, it was not limited crowd size. Like, oh, I hate this. But the kids,
This is like everything that I hate.
yeah,
Like too many people.
yeah,
Yeah.
the kids love it. So it's like, I'll go. Because it was a thing I would avoid. Because like I would like do shows there sometimes on New Year's Eve, and it would just be overrun with kids. And I'm dropping in and doing a spot at the Emmaus Theater tonight because it's near there, and it's close enough to home that's like, yeah, I'm just there and back. I'm not like headlining it or anything. Just my friend asked if anybody could do a spot, so I offered to fill in. But
You mean you don't want to do a New Year's Eve ball dropping headlining show tonight?
I will, but I'm probably not going to stay the whole time. I'm probably going to do my set and go home. But
Hard pass. Hard pass unless the money is so good.
I will do. I'll do it. I don't mind. I did one years ago with a guy who I won't name because I hate him. But I didn't know him until this night. But we get there. He didn't know that they booked a feature. He was like annoyed because he's like, I do a 90-minute show. And I'm like, okay, man. I don't know. They told me to do 30. And he's like, that's too long. We're not doing a 2-hour show. I was like, well, we're starting at 10 and they want
You're
us
like,
to
you
go.
don't have to do an hour and a half.
Yeah, they want us. They want us to go to 10, or we're starting at 10 and they want us to go to midnight to do the countdown. He's like, I'm not doing the countdown. I'm like, I think that's why you're booked. I think the whole reason you're here is for that. And he's like, no, I'm not. He's like, you're not doing a half hour up front. I'm doing 90 minutes. He's like, I'm like, bud, I'll do 5 and go home. They already paid me. I don't care. He's like, I'm not doing the countdown. So do 10 up front and then you come up at the end and do the countdown. I'll go long. I'm like, I can. I'll split up my 30 minutes. I'll do like 10 up front.
Yeah.
He's like, that's ridiculous. Like everything about this is ridiculous. So
You're making this ridiculous.
He goes up. He does almost 2 hours of the hackiest, lamest, most racist prop comedy I've ever seen in my life. And then at 11:55, he's like, oh, I got to bring the other guy back up. All right. And then that was how he ended the show. And then I go up and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that was, but hey, a couple minutes till midnight. And then I did the countdown. And then most of the people who stuck around to talk to me after the show were like, what was that other guy? And I'm like, I had nothing to do with him. We're not friends. I don't know him.
What?
Yeah.
I love that it's not who.
Yeah.
What was that other guy about?
But your other question of if I have any plans, I'm not a big New Year's resolution guy.
Goals. Yeah.
I don't know. I think probably do more shows than I did this year. Now that my kids are a little older and it doesn't seem like anybody cares if I'm home or not, I'm probably going to try to get more gigs than I did in 2024. We'll see.
And you didn't get your world's greatest dad mug for Christmas.
Sure didn't. I did not.
So
I knew I wasn't going to. I mean, I didn't know for a fact, but
pretty sure. You don't have to
they've
name
broken me, Ricky. Is what
your
they've
comedian
done.
for New Year's Eve. I will name mine, and you can nod in agreement if it's the same person, which I don't think it is. I did a New Year's Eve show with Vic DiBitetto.
I don't think that's. I'm not 100% sure what this dude's name even is. It's Paul something, I think.
New York guy, and it was same exact thing that you said. Not necessarily the I'm not going down to the countdown, but was very specific. But with how much time is his feature that I was supposed to do, and went up there and did the most racist. Like the only joke I can remember is, isn't it funny? You go to the deli. And the guy who's working the deli is this Asian guy who doesn't speak much English. Don't you feel weird ordering American cheese from him? And I'm just like, ugh.
That's not even like a good joke.
There was a joke. I don't remember. I just remember like the bits and pieces that were
not that would make it okay.
An issue,
but
yeah. And the audience laughed, and he was such a chotch rocket. And
see, the good thing about this one was the audience also hated this guy. It wasn't sometimes I did a show the other night where I had a decent feature set. I was filling in last minute as a feature for this corporate gig, and it went not great, but like, I'm telling people jokes while they're eating dinner at a corporate thing. It's never going to be incredible. And then the headliner goes up and he's literally just doing street jokes and they're loving it. And it's like, oh, okay. If that's what you guys wanted, I wasn't ever going to be that for you.
Well, I've heard that doing not just corporate shows, but any other shows where when there sometimes is an opener, which we talked about, is way better than when there isn't, even though it's still going to be a garbage show. Is I have had openers that after I've gone up, and if I start doing more crowd work, or if I start, if I'm not told that I can't use language, if I start just being a little bit looser after the shows, the openers be like, "Oh man!" And then you started cursing, and like, man, they love that. I wish I'd have known that when I was up there.
Yeah,
I would have done more of that. It's just
you
like,
can't. You're the opener.
no. Well, and also it's just like that doesn't necessarily mean that. Like, I don't think it's because I said the F word or said a couple of naughtier things that they were just like, ooh, now we like him. But okay, we'll wrap it up because I've got to piss.
All right.
And that is how I know that we are done with the show, is when both of us have to pee.
Correct.
You're listening to Daddio. I'm Ricky Glore.
I'm Glenn Tickle.
Do we have an outro?
The Daddio Show.